everybody? Can I have your attention, please? Got to call the 2001 Coverage Annual Meeting Order. Everybody. So, quick show of hands. This is one of the first times we've back in person since the pandemic started. How many of you in the room are brand new members within the last 5 years? Okay, how about 5 to 10? Excellent. 10 to 20 years. Over 20 years. Wow, that's awesome.
542.
So not quite 55. Closest to it though, I think. Closest to the pin today. So a huge thank you to REI for hosting us in person at their flagship store in DC. This is a fantastic community space, and this is a very special day for both us and them because we are the first community organization that they have allowed in this space since the pandemic shut them down. Yeah, huge thank you to Danny and his crew for having us here. Thank you to Andy's for delivering delicious pizza. And we are happy to have all of you here and also on Zoom virtually. All right. So I hope, all of us, being able to gather across so many generations of peddlers makes us all feel special and loved today. We've got a pretty full agenda to cover in the next hour and change. So I hope you all brought your listening ears, even you at home. So I hope you've also brought your questions and comments about the year that we've had and what's in store for us coming up in 2023. You'll hear from me and hear from Joe about our financial status report, and you'll be able to read it online after he's given his talk. That's been prepared by Joe and our bookkeeper, Deborah Turton. So thank you to both of them. You're also going to hear about what's been going on behind the scenes with the club from our operations team of Deb and Stephen. And you're also going to be hearing from several members who have been on the ground working hard for advocacy. So Rudy's going to give a little update from DC. Deb, I think, is going to give a little update from Maryland. And Ed, who will be joining us virtually, is going to be giving an update from the Virginia Bike Federation. This is also a really special time for Potomac Peddlers. This is the first time in many years that we have representatives either on the board or closely working with the executive committee that are very involved in advocacy efforts in our area. So I'm super, super pleased and proud about that. And I think we should all be very excited about that. We also have a special keynote speaker from Bike Maryland today. Peter is going to give a talk in a little while. Hi, Peter. Talking about what's been going on at Potomac Peddlers has gotten some traction recently with some bigger issues in the area. So I know all of you heard about the nice bridge. Unfortunately, the lawsuit did not come to fruition to halt the construction of the bridge, especially with no plans to have micromobility access across the structure. However, in the last week, we got the word from the National Park Service that Upper Beach Drive is permanently closed to vehicular traffic and open full time, like pedestrians and other methods of micromobility. So that is a huge victory for us. Please get out there and do as soon as you can.
Oh, no, the way it's been since the pandemic. Wow.
All of that. Yes. So other parts of Beach Drive are still closed through the weekend. So definitely avail yourself of all of that accessibility. Okay. So then once we hear from Peter, we get to my favorite part of the evening, which is to announce the 2022 volunteer awards and also to announce some of our new members of the executive committee, while also putting together runoff elections for our other positions. So from my perspective in 2022, this has been a pretty important year for the club. We hit a very important milestone. This is our 55th year, our Emerald anniversary. This is a big milestone that the founders may or may not have seen coming over 5 decades ago when they founded the club. And to think that this club started at the Towpath Cycling Club right off the C&O Canal in DC by several founding members, they had a dream that they could be something for everybody, not just kids, not just commuters, but for everybody across the board. And I know that a lot of them had a vision to see what was happening in our area as far as cycling advocacy and cycling safety goes. What would they say now if they could see us still working really hard at this? But the area that we live in has changed so much. We have brand new urban areas that have sprawled out. into the state. We still have preserved farmland in Maryland and Virginia that we definitely avail ourselves of on a weekly basis. We have a lot of space for the weekend warriors, also those during the week in the club driving the last few rays of daylight, or some of our retirees that like getting together and having lunch during the week. The other thing that's changed in the last 55 years is technology. Technology in the cycling world has given us more methods of access. So people can ride longer and healthier and happier, and I think that's great. On the other side of that equation, technology has really driven the wedge between the have and have-nots cycling club. And there are still a lot of barriers to entry in this sport that we love. I think, as far as the founders are concerned, and certainly as I'm concerned as president, a successful community is one where there are enough seats at the table and that everyone can easily be invited to sit at. And I want to make sure that our community is no different. This year was also another really big step in the right direction for the club financially for becoming peddlers. So as Joe is going to explain in a little bit, we're going to hear about our revenue streams for memberships in our events. For the most part, you'll also hear that we've kept expenses curved. And we've had revenue flowing in the right direction. And we're still very financially stable, which is, as you see the 10-year report, very optimistic, especially looking at the past couple of years in trending and looking at the forecast. This financial stability has afforded us to kind of, lavish and dote upon our members quite a bit this year. We had 2 very awesome picnic rides in Maryland and Virginia. We had some very successful special events where we didn't necessarily have to have the pressure to generate a lot of revenue. And we still managed to get a decent amount of revenue in from our Century event with Twister up in Walkersville and Montytown. We were also able, with this financial stability, to put some cap and put some backing behind some of the greater advocacy efforts in our area. And that's something that I hope to continue, especially into next year, into 2023. One of the things that's not necessarily positive is as Joe will explain, our portfolio, along with most of the world portfolios, did have a slight downturn, but our cash flow has, for the most part, kind of evened it out. So we can talk about that, and we can talk about, potential future steps and what we want to look at with our portfolio going into the future. But I'll say just kind of at the back of an envelope calculation that I've made, and Joe can happily correct me on this in a minute. If we did not bring in a single dime between now and 7 years from now, the lights would still be on. I don't want that to happen though. I want us to keep growing. I want us to keep expanding. I want us to keep reinvesting our resources into our community. So, think about that as we talk about financial stability. So if you remember last year when I was talking about the other big dearth that we had, we were in a huge ask for volunteers. Well, I'm happy to say that a lot of people stepped up this year, and I'm very, very happy about that. So thank you to all of you who have continued your stewardship with the club and who have also volunteered for the first time and really taken a step out of your comfort zone to do that. The volunteers in the last couple of years have really been the biggest scarcity in the club. And, so much to the point where I said in several president newsletters this year, if we don't have enough volunteers, we can't do the things we love to do. And I don't want to say it took me breaking my leg early in April, May, to get people to really step up and volunteer. But if I have to break the other ones next year to keep it happening, I'm not averse to that. No, but I'm really pleased. We had 3 times the number of volunteers show up for our Century and help out this year. And that is unbelievably amazing. It's going to take a lot more than that if we want to go back to Shepherdstown and host the Backroad Century again. But this was a really nice thing to see. New people, new positions coming together to sacrifice one day of their time, or not even a day of their time, to make sure that our club and our cycling community has one of the best days of riding out there. So I'm really grateful for everything that people have done. And I'm almost willing to say that we're very stable on the volunteer front again. So speaking of the Twister, we're very glad that we were able to have a Century to fill the gap in this fall. Now, a little backstory to this. We were in discussion with Shepherd University and Shepherdstown to host the Backroad Century again, and those talks started in early spring. However, something that happened that we did not foresee is several of the needs that we had in the community to support us had to go unmet. Several of the hotels in the area were shut down for long-term renovations and reconstruction, and we really wouldn't have had anywhere to put our riders and our volunteers in town. So we decided to postpone that and move the Twister to the fall, which I think ended up working out for the best for everybody. You know, we're already talking about plans to potentially go back there again next year. I know Shepherdstown would love to have us. They're ready to have us back there and what capacity they will be willing to. We'll see what the community is able to do to hold us there again next year. So I'm really grateful for those that came out on the road. And of course, the biggest question that I'm left with after that day, even though the weather was kind of squirrely, was where were the rest of you? I know a lot of people in this room were out there and it was fantastic, but where were the rest of you on this day to help support the efforts of the club? And this kind of brings me to the next big ask, the next phase of what I'm asking for membership and all of us in the next year. So financial stability, check. Volunteer stability, check. Now, the thing that we are lacking the most, and the thing we need the most is your presence. We need you to show up in whatever capacity you can. So the biggest thing to remember about our cycling club, Potomac Peddlers is more than just riding. Potomac Meddlers is a nonprofit organization that has a threefold mission statement: recreational, social, and educational cycling present in our community. Rides, check. We can handle the recreation. Social, post-ride work, check. Educational, we try to fill people in on social media with what's happening, our advocacy efforts. We need a lot more of that to make ourselves more well-rounded and more present in our community. One of my goals when I took over as president of the club was to make Potomac Peddlers a household name in our cycling community in our region again. We've been working hard at it. We've been reversing some of the stigmas that the club has held for the past, I don't know how many years, with better and sharper ride leader training, with more presence on social media in our communities. And we just need more of this. And the way we can do it is to have our membership, which is still almost 1,600 strong, show up in whatever capacity you can. Now, everyone here, for the most part, has been a member of the club for at least 5 years. You know, if anyone less than club, anyone who's less than club for 5 years, you know, there might be a junction in the next couple of years when you round that 5-year mark. You know, where is the club going to go? Is it going to contract? Is it going to expand? You know, what's going to happen? And we just don't know. And we don't know because we're not sure who's going to show up and be there for us in 5 years. You know, I know right now who's going to show up and be there for us in 2023. I mean, I've got those names and numbers pretty much on speed dial on my phone, and that's awesome. Now, it's just a matter of the rest of the members who are part of this organization, not just think about riding or not riding. It's a matter of representing the club, a matter of representing our ethos, a matter of representing what we can do in our greater community. So it's going to take it's starting with the XCOM this year. We've got some new faces. I think that's going to be amazing. I'm really excited for new people to come in and start tackling some of these issues that we've been talking about for a long time. And maybe it'll break the cycle. You know, I remember when I attended my meeting 5 years ago, and I found myself at the end of that meeting, sitting at the table with XCOM as a newly minted member of the board, thinking, these people don't know who I am. These people haven't met me. These people don't know what I'm about. These people don't know what I'm capable of. But all of you have trusted me. And I'm very grateful for that. And asking the same from what you've done with me for our new XCOM members. Help them, appreciate them, be grateful for them because they're the future of our club. I remember I was sitting at a lunch after a milk house ride that Karen put together with some of our DC people afterwards. And I looked across the table and it was this amazing timeline of the club from what I had known since I joined up through some of the new members that had recently joined in the last year. And I said, this is what this club is all about. Like, if we can keep the club, you know, conveyor belt, new members come in as new members either move out or age out of riding and, you know, their participation wanes, we still have a presence. But that presence right now has to be amplified in our community, and it's up to us to do it. What I'd love to see, of course, and I can't make this happen in the next year, is I want to see the club thrive for another 55 years. Who knows what cycling is going to look like in 55 years? maybe our area will get its act together and start actually prioritizing micromobility. That would be fantastic. We look around the world and see other amazing metropolitan areas, like Paris and Amsterdam, and even Quito and Ecuador, which I witnessed last year, really jump on board to this. And when and if it does happen in our area, I want us to be the spearhead for that change. Wouldn't that be something? So think about that in the coming year. And with that, I thank you for your continued support of Potomac Peddlers, and let's make 2023 the best year we can.
You. We need information regarding. Curious, some people dropped out.
It's really.
Please repeat the question, please.
So, hi, Ed.
Hey, how you doing, Ann?
Good. So Ken asked the question, how many people did we lose during the COVID era? So I will say in 2020, during early pandemic times, our membership numbers dropped to about 900. A year later, which was a year ago this week, when I gave the same presidential address, we were back up at 1,600. So we saw a really big rebound in membership, and Stephen Mink, one of our operations gurus, has done a little bit of background reporting to membership attrition in the past, 6 years, 1 year. So he can speak more to that when he talks about off stuff.
Yeah, the other thing you think, during COVID, a lot more people picked up cycling. Bike shop right now,
Yes.
so there should be more correlation.
One would think. And as we mentioned this last year we held our meeting at the bike lane in Reston. And Todd, one of the owners, really spoke about that and said, there has been a huge number of people that have jumped onto the cycling train. It's a matter of having these people feel comfortable and confident to take to the roads more. Is it a matter of, do we make them ride how we ride? Do we ask them how they want to ride? And this is kind of the crossroads where we're at. We have a very distinct, very niche style of group rides. Is that for everybody? Maybe. I think it's the safest way to ride on the roads right now. I've unfortunately, been witness to several incidents that have happened over the last year. We lost one of my dear friends, Sean Blumenfeld, a member of this club, the day after our ride leader meeting. He was killed by a driver of a van. My best friend in October almost lost her life because a truck cut her off on the road while she was cycling with her triathlon team. And these are things that, I really feel can at least be mitigated by safety numbers and presence of cyclists on the road, so we don't feel so lonely out there. How do we get these new cyclists in? I don't know. What's going to sweeten the deal for them to join our club? What's going to sweeten the deal for them to come out and ride with us or ride for us? Or just get more involved and interested in their cycling because of us? And these are questions I hope that our XCOM will tackle and discuss in the next year and hopefully have some solutions to by the next time we meet.
And also, when the pandemic hit, a lot of people that had been long-term members thought, well, I can't ride with the club anyway, right now anyway. So I'm just gonna let my membership lapse, and when the club comes back, I'll re-up. So I think that was a large part of our decrease.
Right.
The rebound.
Yeah, I agree. And, and we still have a lot of members who have re-upped their membership. They're still riding in their bubbles. Great. If that's how you feel safe, awesome. Is that the only way we should be riding as a club? Not necessarily. Let's have other ventures out there. Let's fill our calendar with other ideas. Let's have coffee rides. Let's have commuter rides as people start funneling back into their jobs and being safe. One of the things I had hoped early on before the pandemic hit was to get a commuter train restarted on the Capitol Crescent. Well, a lot of federal agencies still aren't back in person more than 1 or 2 times. So it's kind of a non-starter. Sylvia, I think, can speak more to the bike commuter life right now as it is, because I don't do it anymore. But that's a good point. And I'd love for all of us to kind of think outside the box and say, what am I really missing in my life of cycling? Do I want to go on a coffee ride? Do I want to go on an adventure? Do I want to just go to crush some miles out on the Skyline Drive? Do I want to sit at home in the comfort of my basement on the trainer when there's 4 feet of snow outside and go right on Swift with some friends and hit up a Discord channel? It can be all the above. And that's one of the nice things about the firepower and the resources our club has. It doesn't have to be yes, but it can be yes and. There's really very few things that we are limited to by our insurance instructions, basically, that let us, we can do what pretty much a lot of things, whatever we want to do. Yes, Ken.
That's an interesting point, with the aging population, the White Club, a lot more, problems higher,
Mhm.
so the kind of rise they want, probably know about. So the social aspect, you talk about property, work.
Absolutely.
Friday ride, Norman never very successful.
Absolutely. And they've got a really nice model. They go out and ride, they have lunch. I mean, I know a couple people on here, Bellhaven Group, a group that rides down in Alexandria, they do the same thing. They go out and they have lunch afterwards. And if the person doesn't ride that day, they join them for lunch anyway, because that's what tight-knit community they have. Anything else before I hand it over to Joe? All right, thank you for your time. All right, Joe, tell us some good news.
Hi, buddy, man.
Hey.
You're up.
So let's see here.
I got it.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, sorry, we've got a chat question. Oh, can hear you much better when I turn to the right. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah,
All right. No questions from Ed.
No, Ed's not allowed to answer
Fine.
questions. He left us.
is Vinicius пожалуйста?
It's all about show me the money. I'd like to put this in perspective, talking about like where we've come since COVID. So I've been in this position for about 2 years. And when I came in, it was, correct me if I'm wrong, a bit dire. The numbers dropped because people weren't out doing social rides. I mean, and that was reflected in our finances. I think we were, like you folks, like individuals, the club has an investment portfolio, has a bank account, a checking account. And we were pulling funds from the investment account,
Every year.
which is the purpose of that account. It's the rainy day fund. But just to keep afloat, we were having to pull money to keep operating, because the dues weren't coming in, it was dropping, we had no events. So it was pretty dire. And okay,
So something else that Joe is mentioning is leading up to 2020, we were outlaying so much money for back roads that it was a do or die situation for us to turn X number of profit for us to net zero for our revenue for the year. So keep that in mind, since we have not been back to Shepherdstown for this event since 2019.
and where's the chart? I'm gonna start with that.
The chart? This one? Oh, the chart. I got you.
Graph.
I got you.
Technology brought
Sorry.
by-
Technology brought to you by, I can't even. Where are you? Here we are. Can everybody see this chart?
Okay, sorry, we don't have this projected, the people watching on Zoom, but what this is reflecting, and I know you all can read it, but basically the numbers for the past 2 years, or for the past year, okay? The numbers in blue are the checking account, the numbers in red are the investment account. So we have a Vanguard account, index funds, and let me start with the checking account. So last year, the club had $31,193 and change. Well, we have since doubled that. It's $65,517 and change. So basically, this is a steady flow of dues coming in. We've had a little bit of attrition with our membership, but it's basically people like you, people online, our club members paying those dues. And then with our events, which we've had a little bit of positive income. I think I don't know if we have our final expense numbers, but
They're closed for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever's there is within $200 of your end.
Yeah, so, and we'll look at that. So in other words, we're in the black with cash, and we've kept our expenses fairly minimal. We do rely on volunteers. We do have some regular fixed expenses, but we have the resources to do things. And since I've been doing this, but this is no fault of mine, I think it's a reflection of we're coming back from COVID. We have not had to dip into the portfolio. Okay, so we're basically operating in the black on a cash basis. With respect to the portfolio, like many of you, all of you, it's like your 401k. How's that been going?
Great.
Yeah, okay. Well, the clubs, the Vanguard fund that we have are index funds. They reflect the S&P 500. There's a larger stock market index, international fund, and like a money market fund. And with the economy, it's been going down. Sorry?
October was better for the S&P. Hopefully we're turning.
Yeah, so just in terms of the gross, in terms of the gross numbers, at the start, last year at this time, you know, it's not ginormous, but it's fairly moderate, but it was some $261,000 in the Vanguard fund. We're now at 223. So that's not actually a loss. It's only a loss if you sell it or transfer it out. Likewise, if it's higher, and you could get a gain, but it's if we leave it alone at some point, it'll come back. So this really, I think, is the bottom line of the club's finances. If we're operating in the black on a cash basis, and we, you know, maybe that's worth looking at. On occasion, we have done that. We will put money into the fund. You buy low. That may be something, decision the board may make. But in general, our because we're operating in the black with cash, our finances are very good. Okay.
Statement.
Oops.
Keep talking.
All right. So
What next?
yeah, let's look at some of the events.
All right, so here's our event spreadsheet. Bring this up here.
And will all this be available on the website?
All of this is going to be
Yeah.
available on the website, on the financial report, and this meeting is being recorded for those who want to double check it later.
Yeah.
So we're not just blowing smoke here. Everything is actually in writing.
Okay, so the events that we've had this year, some of them, like the Century, we've charged fees for. Others, like, I don't think with the Germantown, it was, no. So Germantown, the Luz Weekend, Nokesville Picnic, Shenandoah Weekend, the Twister, and the Watermelon Ride. I'm not sure what that one is.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, okay. The bottom line is I added these up. I think we came in with a positive net of about 33.
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
I think with the Twister, when we discussed it on the board, we were wondering, you know what, if we got more people coming in, that's another area, but in other words, okay, it's not huge, but if it pays for itself, or if we break even, that's good, but we've made a little extra, so and these are good, successful events.
one of the things that we've been proud to do this year is offer events with resources and food and refreshments to our members as a thank you to our members for coming back. So the picnic rides were free of charge, even though we spent all this money on food and refreshments. Some of our special event weekends were also zero, so basically people reserved, paid for their food, got their hotel room for even. That's really been the spirit of some of the stuff we've done this year. Lewis made a small profit. The Century also made a small profit, and we're not bent out of shape over it right now.
Sorry, let me just get the overall on the.
All right. Overall. That's me. That's me. Bear with me one sec. Here's the year to date. This is what you wanted.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the final graph, I know it's, or the chart, are basically the details. So the revenue coming in, again, with dues, 1-year dues, 2-year dues, the events, the expenses. I don't know if I have anything to say in terms of the particulars. Anything that we,
I mean, we spent some money on swag. We have some of our stickers here for those who showed up in person.
Yeah.
We stick a sticker, not a patch sticker. The patches are special for the club. I brought them for show and tell.
yeah, but just one thing to keep in mind, just in terms of the financial picture, I mean, we have a really nice cushion, but we still depend on participation for people willing to sign up, join the club, pay dues, participate, enter into the events. So going forward, that's still essential. But what's nice is we having the cash on hand, especially. People should be thinking, boy, we want to do some events and do something extra with it. Yeah.
Who are you talking to? You talking to yourself?
Who, me?
I don't have any earbuds.
She would have lost him by now.
What?
All right.
Sorry. I often wonder who I'm talking.
I got it.
Is that Patricia?
All right.
Is that Patricia?
Yes, Patricia.
Ask her if she wants anything special for me to cook.
Folks who are not,
I just muted them.
We just muted all of them.
oh, you got the wrong.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
So I assume with our tax exempt status, if we draw one more funds, pay for an event, we're not subject to tax, right? If we take something out of one of the funds,
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, well, you put in your taxes and
Yeah, yeah.
Right. you're not taking the money out for anything you say that it's gonna be used for.
Yeah. I mean, if we take the money out and use it for some types of other purposes, that would be different, but
Have designated funds within your little reserves, like there, I designated $50,000, it's only gonna be used for advocacy. Well, then you're locked into that, but as long as you don't say that, and you
Yeah.
your taxes, and,
Yeah.
status, knock yourself off.
We have
That's
very
exactly right.
generic categories for that. implicit. Any other questions? Oh, Sophie.
I'm sure the spreadsheet will tell all the details.
Yeah.
Wondering in terms of revenue coming in. Are most of our revenues essentially from events, or do we also have to mention what thought
Donations probably made up 1% of overall.
Yeah.
revenue for the year.
Joe, please repeat the questions. We can't, online, we cannot hear the questions, okay?
We're just trying to keep you.
okay, so the question was,
I'll teach you for moving away.
yeah, basically the revenue sources are primarily dues. Okay, it's a small amount with the events. And I think with the, when we did the Backroad Century, we sort of committed ourselves more that that would be a moneymaker, but we really haven't done that with our other events. They're sort of more small scale, I suppose. But in some ways, it's kind of positive that way.
The way, we haven't had any pressure on our events in the last 2 years as like a do or die break, either break even point or generate X amount of revenue point, like we've had with the Backward Century in the past. The last few years I was on board on the planning committee for BRC, it was, we need to make at least X amount of money, X tens of thousands of dollars, Y tens of thousands of dollars, and that really relied on getting a certain number of riders out, keeping costs down where we could, and it was this crazy tug of war for 7 months planning the event. With the smaller events that we've had and happening more frequently now, with the special event weekends and Twister, and maybe getting some new rides on board next year, where non-veterans also participate for a small fee. A lot of smaller bites, I think would be, it keeps the pressure off of us. We're in such a financial stable position right now, I think, that if we want to do Backroads, we don't need to have a number in our heads to put it on. And that's been one of the nice things about doing the smaller events like the Twister and thinking about Lewis weekend and Shenandoah weekend. We don't have a bottom line in our heads to get these events out there to have our members and our non-members.
Yeah, but in answer to your question, Sylvie, if you're wondering, I think some other comparable organizations may have rely on some grants to a certain extent. We really are self-sustaining. Now, maybe if somebody has ideas of working with business or other ideas for revenue generation, that's another story. That may be worthwhile, but financially, we're self-sustaining. So yeah, I think donations,
Anything else for Joe? Or we move on to operations? All right, reports will be online for everybody to view. Thank you.
Good morning, man.
Hi, everybody. So I only have a little bit to say, and then I'm going to turn it over to Stephen for some particulars, but we have been working very hard as usual on the website. We have chosen the platform that we're using now, and there's still, constant improvements that we're working on. And we are planning to start working with someone from Club Express to help us out on that. I am really happy with all the different things that we've done this year for the club, like the brewery rides, the picnic rides, and those are a great benefit to our members. Those have really been fabulous. Of course, I have to say that Shenandoah was great. Beautiful, beautiful riding out there. Great job. It was great. So we've done a lot of really fun things this year. So certainly we would love to hear other ideas. If you have ideas of something else that would be fun. Years ago, I remember Rudy leading a rock and roll tour around DC and showing us all of these sites that were famous. I had a great time on that ride. We probably need to do more of things like that. That was very educational. Maybe not for the cyclists, but for the tour, it was great. It was really awesome. So again, any sort of ideas that you have, please do put it out there and let us know. We've also been doing a really great job at going paperless. So no longer need to print the cue sheets. We have the club membership for Ride with GPS, and you can just download it right to your Garmin. And we also have now One change that we did make is that all of our rides are behind the sign in, but that enables you to register for the rides. And you don't have to go there and sign in and all of those things. So we have done a really good job with that this year too. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Stephen.
Well, thanks, Deb. Stay up here a little bit because. So for the past year, sort of Ann brought me in to understudy a bit, while Deb was taking the lead on operations and keeping the website ticking along. Deb has expressed an interest to move more into sort of advocacy and putting her time into that. So looking ahead to the next year, I'll be taking a little bit higher profile and still relying on the people who converted the club over to Club Express, because there's people in the room here who know some of the corners of how that website works much better than I do. But as Deb mentioned, we may bring on a second person who gets payroll from our organization apart from the bookkeeper. And that'd be a couple of hours minimum per month from Club Express itself, just to help us figure out the black box. I guess looking at the past year and what it means for the next year, where we sort of hiccups, I think, on the website the most was around the special events, because each one requires kind of a different setup. You've got Lewis, which has got hotel reservation. You've got Tannytown, which is multiple ride distance sign up with the GPS is all in there. And so each one is a slightly different configuration, and the people in charge of organizing those rides will real time be contacting Deb and myself and saying, such and such is not working, help, this is taking place in 48 hours. And it's not always easy to be responsive on that. So we're going to try to do a better job on that. Keep in mind that the website is also the way for the members to get in touch with each other. There's a membership record. Ride leaders probably use that directory to figure out emergency contacts, so that they've got on their cell phone emergency contacts of people on their rides, so that they can respond on the road and get people contacted. But there are other, we've got the ride library now, which I think Rudy, you and somebody else.
Yeah, Eric Pilskin and I did a lot of work curating that and clearing out the weeds, because
It was about,
we had a lot of cue sheets, still have a lot of cue sheets. And those, pretty much all of them has actually been converted. We got rid of ones with deprecated ride stuff. It was a process, put it that way.
but there's hundreds of rides up there now. They're all GPS files. You can go in and search. And I guess maybe the last piece on the website that we're going to keep an eye on is the ride leaders, just to be able to navigate to put rides up there. There's bells and whistles. I think, Carol, you were the one this year that figured out where to put the GPS file. Something comes up with the ride. So I think this is only the third year or so that we're on this website, and we're still getting it fine-tuned. Stay tuned. Club Express was bought out this past year, so they're now under a bigger umbrella, and we're keeping our eye on that. But for the time being, things seem stable and predictable on that front.
Migration, just for a second, you said in the future, we may, there would be another paid position, so is this, we're gonna take someone at Club Express and we'll go back there for help, we're not doing the Oliver Twist thing, or?
Yeah.
So, okay.
We're having a little bit of trouble just this past month getting responsiveness, but the offer on their part, it makes sense in principle.
No, I mean, we pay them that, yeah, that's
It'd be,
way up the food chain.
it'd be 3 hours minimum a month, and it's a really reasonable hourly rate.
No, I have no problem.
So, but we're not there yet. We'd like to have a contract. We'd like to be able to deal with one person, not 100. Just to come back to the membership issue, because the website allows us to print out various kinds of reports. One is on membership, and just to follow up on your question, we rebounded to about 1,600 members at the beginning of this calendar year, and we've seen some sort of slow attrition since then. It's been mostly in the 1-year individual members, and we tried to counteract that by introducing a trial membership, a 1-month free membership, which hasn't really worked. So we had about 50 or so, I think, of those trial memberships over the course of the year, but that only turned into about 4 or 5 permanent members. So that cost of entry doesn't seem to be a major problem. So we're still stuck with trying to tackle that problem of how do we keep the membership stable if not actually growing?
Mhm.
Any other questions on
Eli
chat
has a
or
question.
can the favorite icon be fixed? Yes, can we bilateral on that to fix that? 'Cause I've heard that twice and I don't understand it, but can. It just be the bilateral. The icon that
I'm gonna
appears on
grab
your web browser.
Question there for Joe.
Yeah,
Can get to later. I Eli. Okay.
We have a cheaper icon right now. We have one. Neighbor. We used to.
Ed, you're up next. So unmute yourself, please.
Eli, let's.
Oh, I am unmuted.
All right.
And they have some questions on chat.
Yeah, we're just looking through. Nothing on this right now. So we are going to move on to our advocacy reports. We're actually going to start with a man with the golden voice who has unfortunately left us for beachier climates. Ed Hazelwood is a member of the Virginia Bike Federation, and he's going to report on that now.
Yeah, kind of like, so what's going on with Virginia Bicycling Federation right now, which is basically working on advocacy for cyclists, especially in Virginia. I'm still a Potomac Peddler member, even though I moved away to Virginia Beach. I upped up for 2 more years on my membership just to keep it going. It seemed like a good thing to do. Woo-hoo. And so now I'm down here, a 6-minute walk from the ocean. Woohoo! And last month I testified before Virginia Beach City Council at the request of the Virginia Bicycling Federation to talk to them about putting up money to request money from a federal grant towards getting the Virginia Beach Trail, which would take over part of the Southern Railway right away, to get the work done on that. And we got approval. They decided to go ahead and put $50 million towards that. Woo-hoo!
Nice.
So that was my first time I've been at Virginia Beach City Council in 37 years. It was great because I used to be the reporter for Wavy TV 10 down here, and I was the Virginia Beach reporter. Yeehaw! So that was kind of cool. And 3 of the council members actually remembered me. I couldn't believe it. So it was a lot of fun. So anyway, that's the first thing in there. Secondly, last month, not last month, even more recent than that, I had a meeting with Bill DeSteff. He is a state senator from Virginia. He is a cyclist. He's a Republican. I don't usually meet with the Republicans. I usually meet with the Democrats. That's me. But, you do what you got to do. And so he has agreed, he has asked Legislative Services in the General Assembly to draft a version of a bill for the bicycle safety stop for Virginia. So not only is he a cyclist, he's also an Ironman. He is also a triathlete. He does all that kind of stuff. And so it was actually a very good meeting. So we're working on that legislation and hope that he will introduce it, knowing how politics is going right now. It seemed like a good idea to work with the Republican to get this legislation introduced into the Virginia General Assembly. And so that's the push. So working with Virginia Bicycling Federation to do that as well. A little bit later, actually in about 12 minutes, we begin the Virginia Bicycle Federation annual meeting. So I'll be switching to that Zoom meeting in a little bit. We have several committees. I mean, I would encourage anybody at Potomac Peddlers, particularly if you live in Virginia, if you want to get involved, we have an advocacy committee, a partnership committee, a membership committee, communications and education committee. I'm co-chairman of that one, and a governance committee, which is, basically how we operate. There are, we're doing a lot, and we have legislative initiatives for 2023. The safety stop is the top one. That's the one we're pushing the hardest because we think it's actually possible we might get that through in the General Assembly in 2023. We're asking the General Assembly to pass a resolution, so it's not a law, resolution to eliminate traffic fatalities in the state by 2050. So that's a Vision Zero requirement. So we're pushing the legislature to do that. Maintaining trail funding in Virginia. Last year, we got more trail funding than Virginia has ever seen. We're trying to push for another $41 million adjusted for inflation this year to legalize riding two abreast on a highway. It kind of got taken away last year. More funding for the state bike plan and pedestrian funding as well, not just cyclists. Senator Somerville of Fairfax, he has legislation going forward on a Nova Bikes project to study it. We're trying to support that one as well. Rebates for e-bikes in the state, very important. Replacing contributory negligence with comparative negligence. We understand this one's going to be hard as hell. We don't expect we're going to get that one.
And do it now, so.
But we're just going to effing work for it. So that's what we're pushing for. Also trying to expand automatic speed enforcement in residential areas and business districts. And use of the 15-mile-an-hour law to state roads in business and residential districts. So those are the things the Virginia Bicycling Federation is working on. Some are at the top of the list. Some we're not going to expend all of our capital on, but we're going to go for it. But I just want to let you know that that's what we're doing. So if you live in Virginia in particular and you want to get involved, let me know.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. Everybody have a great time. And I got my wife out on the bike today. Woohoo.
Excellent.
So Ed, what is the easiest thing that our Virginia members can do to help out?
Pay attention to what's going on and where the things stand, and then contact your legislator, be it a delegate or be it a state senator. So Patrick Hope in Arlington, Barbara Favola in Arlington, she's state senator. She is the vice chairman of the Senate Transportation Committee, for God's sakes. She is a good one to get in touch with. Bill DeSteff, he happens to be my guy. He represents me here in Virginia Beach. And God, I got a Republican representing me, but that's life. But it seems like the right way to go. So you just got to reach out and talk to them. I always, donated a little bit of money to Favola's campaigns, Patrick Hope's campaigns. I go to their pizza parties and always go talk to them about bicycles. Just do it. It's fun. And pizza ain't half bad.
We miss you, Dad.
Okay, thanks all.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
All right, so piggybacking quite briefly on what Ed is talking about in Virginia, Terry Simpson, one of our partners, is not here tonight, but she wanted me to give her report on her behalf. So Terry's been very involved in the last year on trying to get Virginia back on the map with the club. If you notice, if you look at our calendar, the majority of rides happen in Maryland. And then the majority of the rides after that happen out of DC. And there might be one or two rides during the week that happen out of Virginia. And we've been trying to do a deeper dive and figure out why that is. Are Virginia members just not riding? Are there just certain areas that are dead spots? What's going on here? So looking at a few reports, especially ones that happened in May when we did our big ride leader competition, we looked across the board to see where people were riding. So there were a lot of rides in Maryland. Okay, it's all Marylanders that are riding up there? No, it's people from Virginia that are crossing the river and going up. So I would say 95% of our members that live in the state of Virginia live inside the Beltway. They do not want to travel west outside the Beltway to ride. They're traveling north up into DC and north up into Maryland to ride. And why is this? Is it the ride start location? Could be, because 66 is a disaster area for construction right now, in both directions.
Is it lack of exciting riding? Is it lack of good ride starts? Is it lack of social opportunity? We're trying to figure that out. Terry's been working so hard on trying to sweeten the deal to get people out to Virginia to ride. Her watermelon ride was a huge success. That was the biggest ride outside of Ed's going away party ride that we had in Virginia this year. We would like more of those things. Besides, we don't want more people to go away, but we want more really nice rides in Virginia. We look and see what some of the successes were in Maryland this year. Picnic ride, absolutely. Parents Brewery Series ride was an absolute smashing success in Maryland. Well, true. So we're looking to mirror that opportunity down in Virginia this year, and we're looking for ride leaders, especially for multi-class rides, to do that. So any ride leaders that want to lead something in Virginia, you wouldn't be on your own. You would have a team working hard to get people to come and ride with you for a special event. Out of just for kicks and giggles, about a month or 6 weeks ago, I designed this ride and called it the uppers and downers ride.
Yeah.
Where we alternate rest stops. It's a metric. It can be shortened down to about 30, depending on how you want to ride, depending on your speed. Alternating cideries and coffee shops. It is beautiful loop. You laugh, but it's brilliant. And I will be the first one out there trying it out in the spring.
That actually was some of the inspiration was their 10 espressos.
Yeah, we watched that and had a ripper already. You know, so it's not 10 espresso, it's a leisurely stop at each of these places. You know, and maybe it's a one-off ride. Maybe it's a punch card where you visit these places in Virginia and you can fill your punch card, you get invited to a special ride or a special event for social activities. But we're really looking to fill the gaps in Virginia. We're looking for more multi-class rides, looking for more ride leaders across the board in Virginia to help put their heads together and figure out where and how people want to ride. If it's a problem with 66, how do we circumvent that? If it's a problem with not having as many rides where people want to ride, that's another issue. We've identified some people who want to lead some gravel rides. And if you know anything about gravel, Loudoun County is one of the hot spots for gravel riding in not just our region, in the country. People come in and ride our gravel from all over. So stay tuned for that. And this is one of those places where if you can be present, please be present. All right, so that's Terry's report. Rudy.
Hi there. All
Let's get
right.
a report on DC.
Yay, DC. Well, she let the cat out of the bag already on Beach Drive and hi Zoomers. So Beach Drive was a huge success. We actually signed on with a lot of other organizations to lobby the National Park Service and anybody who would listen to keep Beach Drive a park as opposed to a parkway. And luckily that has come to fruition. There's going to be a little bit of friction going forward. There are a handful of people who are going to be protesting at Eleanor Holmes-Thornton's National Park Service meeting. So if you can, get on there and just be present. Something else we've signed on to are a couple of things that are local. One is the DC Council is working to do the safety stop, the Idaho stop here in the District of Columbia. Looks like it will pass. And it will pass with a veto-proof majority. So if the mayor vetoes it, it'll go through. That would go into effect in 2025. And the other thing that we really pushed hard on is in 2019, the DC Council passed an omnibus bicycle safety bill. We were one of the co-supporters of it. We testified from the council multiple times about this, actually. It was all passed, vetoed by the mayor, overridden by the council. There's no budget to fund most of the things. And so that's the next challenge, is to get the funding. So going to be a lot of discussion with various and sundry channels that influence the mayor. The other one is Upper Connecticut Avenue. There's currently a movement to create a protected bike lane each direction between Woodley Park and Chevy Chase. Amazing stuff. They've already gotten rid of the flip-flop lane that was there for rush hour. That's gone. That has actually reduced the number of car crashes by about 70% on Connecticut Avenue. Now it is basically overcoming a very vocal minority of people who live within a mile of Connecticut Avenue who think that the bike lane is going to destroy everything that is good about Connecticut Avenue. even if all the data out there shows that you build protected bike and micromobility infrastructure in front of stores, their business increases already twofold. People who ride slowly see things. People who drive quickly, tunnel vision. Something we all know, because this is how we find out about these cool breweries and coffee houses and that. We see them as we ride past and we think, hey, let's stop there. I mean, yeah, you can speak to this as the guy who goes to lots of big coffee houses. So we are looking to be advocates for that. That's a journey that's just starting. It has been approved by, and DDOT is doing the initial studies right now, but there is, like I said, a vocal minority. Majority of people who live along that area would probably like it. Nice north-south connector, which we do not really have on that side of town to get to downtown. The DuPont area where I live, we've already approved building protected bike lanes on Connecticut Avenue up to the bridge over Rock Creek. That's already approved. That's already stuff that's going to happen when they finish the deck over of DuPont Circle. It's getting that next section going. Something else I've been doing just as a DC ride leader, I lead a ride called the Downtown Breakaway with Carol, familiar with. And we've started doing more rides from the district, and we're trying to get them so that they extend a little further out into our neighboring jurisdictions. So we say, hey, we're not just insular. We don't just stay within the diamond or the diamond with a bike taken out of it. We go all sorts of places. And doing them in a multi-class way. The Downtown Breakaway has everything from hammerheads at the front to it's a mullet protocol. It's series in the front, party in the back. And the CC group in the back often has the best time. In fact, Sylvia and we can speak to this. The A leaders each took turns leading the party in the back for this year. We all took a week and led the CCs. I think all of us to a person had the most fun we ever had in the Downtown Breakaway the week that we led the CCs. Because it was basically read the room, see where people wanted to go, what distance they wanted to go. We often got to the beers first at the end. The ride always ends with a stop at a place where you can get a frothy adult beverage. And that's something that I think going forward with the club, and spoke to this a bit. Advocacy on our own part with the club. Fun fact, WABA evolved out of us 50 years ago. If not for Potomac Peddlers, WABA wouldn't be WABA. We'll just put that right out. But we can be our own best advocate growing the club. Our club, I'm going to call out the white elephant in the corner of the room. We're aging in place. We are. We need to rebuild from below. And how do you do that? You create things that attract, and you want to be the club you want to see. The club I want to see is a very inclusive, diverse, not fun averse, not the club of thou shalt not, but the club of we can and will. And just making it, when I first came out to a club ride in 2003, best thing was going out to lunch afterwards, having some lunch and beers, just having kind of casual. There weren't a lot of rules. They made sure I wasn't dropped and lost. That's it. It was simple. And since then, I've seen just kind of this narrowing down, and we could blow it up a little bit. I'm hoping we can. I'm hoping we can do it without leaving those who brought us to the dance behind. It has to be inclusive all the way around. Are there going to be pitfalls doing it? Oh yeah, there will. But our club will grow if we create something that's attractive to people who are new to the scene. All these new people who took up biking during COVID, all these people who rediscovered biking during COVID. There are a lot of people who had their bikes gathering dust. I remember volunteering at one of the local bike co-ops and seeing how many bikes had cobwebs coming in. And because they wanted to start biking. So we will be that club. We can be that club. We need to have a sense of humor about it, and we need to be open to all the possibilities. And I think we will. So that's my 2 cents. In DC, we're along for the ride. So there you go.
Right, so
Question, yes, before Deb goes. Hi, tag. Yes. Stephen, please.
Sure. Right. On Upper Connecticut,
Yes.
formally, it's at a stage where the mayor has endorsed it and DDOT's moving to the next stage of detailed design. There's enormous pushback. So my question is, what's your reading of the best thing that advocates do?
The best thing advocates can do, my read, is to, especially if you live in the district, is contact your council member. Especially ones who, and if it's one of the at-larges, contact one of the at-larges who's on the Transportation and Environment Committee. They're the ones who really hold the keys to all of this. Currently, the chair of that committee is Mary Kay. She's not running for re-election, so there will be a new chair of that committee come next January. But Councilmember Kay's office is always open to cyclists contacting her. Councilmember Charles Allen from Ward 6, big time. He rides his bike to the office a whole lot. Councilmember Alyssa Silverman is on there. Councilmember Brooke Pinto, who's my council member, is on that committee. She's very open to it. In fact, just had her ward ride through with council. The other thing too is patronize businesses on Connecticut Avenue and let them know that you would be really happy if you could get there on a bike. It's simple. Go to Bache, get some pizza, say, hey, I would love to have been able to ride here. And if I did ride here, point out you rode. Or if you took mass transit there, point out you took a bus or metro. Let them know how you got there. That was actually something that happened. The Avalon Theater up at Chevy Chase had one of the no Connecticut Avenue bike lane signs in their window, and the cyclists went in and said, I can't believe you did that. And they said, they asked questions, and the education happened. They took the sign, and they are now looking at ways to organize to help this. It's a done deal at this part. The other thing too is it's hard to change people's mindset when it comes to a culture. And we have a culture in this country, we drive everywhere. It's the post-war dream. You would have a car and you would drive everywhere. And it is great, exciting the fact that we're in a dense urban space here in the district. That's tough. It's tough. You're not supposed to be able to conveniently drive everywhere in a dense urban space because it's walkable. It's bikeable. There's a great transit network. There are people who Metro say we actually have one of the better mass transit systems in the country in terms of execution and in terms of reliability. Right? There we are. Sure.
Yeah, I just have a question about Connecticut Avenue, sort of in general, but it bears on this bike lane thing. And that is the lanes, the existing lanes there are incredibly narrow, and the buses have a horrible time on Connecticut Avenue, period. Even when they had, no bike lanes and none of this other stuff, because I used to drive that stretch, and there were buses over their dotted line all the time.
And that's
I just wonder how they're going to manage that.
part of it is they're going to right scale the lanes. In every design they have there, the lanes on Connecticut Avenue are actually not uniform width.
Right.
There's some that are narrow and some that are wide. That was part of the flip flop. The center lane was actually 2 feet wider than the other lanes because of its flip flop nature. They're going to restripe the whole thing.
Okay.
So that's part and parcel of it. It's not the same. The same lanes you see now will not exist when it's rebuilt.
Okay.
But like Steve said, there is a very organized. It's funny that there are the two organizations there. The one that is against bike lanes is one called Safe Connecticut Avenue. The one that is for the bike lane is called Safer Connecticut Avenue. If you want to see anything about, most of it goes to Ward 3. Ward 3 had its open streets event yesterday. The people from the pro bike lane group had wonderful traction. People in the anti-bike lane group eventually were shown the door from the event because they didn't have traction, were getting very antagonist. So they say a cornered animal screams loudest. There's a small group of cornered animals screaming, but the lion's share of the people who live in who have kids who would like to be able to bike to work because their work is offering them bike parking, or they're there. It's just be persistent, be kind, and just, especially if somebody has contacted kids or grandkids who live in that area, it'd be nice because they always say, this is the thing, I support bike lanes, but the lives. Why not put them on side streets? If they would have been put on side streets, they would have been there decades ago. They're not. So, where do you put them? So, and until we make it so that you can build neighborhood groceries and shops yet, which that's all been zoned out. That is the place to do it if you want to retail. Anyway, but that I've spoken enough. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ruth. All right, so like Ann said, we ride a lot in Maryland. And through the whole thing with the Nice Bridge, I realized that we had lost our connection with Bike Maryland. So many of you know that we had 2 club members that were really active. We had Kim Lemclear and David Whitaker, and we unfortunately lost both of them way too early. But I would like for us to reestablish our connection with Bike Maryland. And yes, I still live in Virginia. However, if you know me at all, you know that I ride all over. Last count, 33 states. Oh. Anyway, last count, I have ridden in 33 states, and I do ride in Maryland a lot. So I would like to introduce Peter Gray to you. Peter is an interim chair of Bike Maryland. He's been an avid cyclist and advocate for biking, walking, and safer streets for the past 20 years, over 20 years. He served as the chair of the coalition of the Capitol Crescent Trail. Many of us have ridden the Crescent over and over. He was a board member of WABA and is currently on the steering committee of Montgomery Families for Safe Streets, and is excited to now step into the role of interim board chair for Bike Maryland. He hopes to lead Bike Maryland into a reinvigorated era of the organization as a leading voice for all those biking and walking in the state of Maryland. So, Peter, thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. The main topic I'm going to sort of talk about is the legislative session that we had this year, and the victories that we had and whatever. But I just want to say a few general things about and actually first talk about connecting. The idea of going to the businesses and saying, hey, I'm a cyclist, I'm a fan, definitely recommend that. And if you can get groups to go to, at the end of rides, to end up on Connect that, and even better. We had a very successful sort of very low level campaign about this on 7th Street and Silver Spring. And we were able to convert a lot of the businesses to the idea that if they actually put it affected by goal, which is going to come in the next couple of years, that this will help their businesses. And there's a lot of data about that. The other thing I would make a pitch for, if we're focused on Connecting Avenue, is to, at the very least, reach out to WABA and say, I'm interested in the campaign about Connecting. Because WABA is leading the charge on that, and can use all the support that and if you want to reach me on my WABA hat, my email is peter@waba.org. But Bike Maryland. So Bike Maryland has continued through the pandemic to gather advocates, to set priorities, and this last legislative session, I think, was our most successful in terms of getting bills through the legislature that actually are very impactful. In the past, the organization sort of focused on things that are a little sort of inside baseball kind of things, like who knows what the 3-foot rule is. People in this room do, but people outside this room probably don't. We did get a very significant victory in 2021, where we got a vulnerable road user law passed, and that had to do with when there are crashes that take place that result in a significant injury or fatality of a vulnerable road user, a cyclist, a pedestrian. Hello to the virtual audience. That it used to be that drivers would either get a paper ticket or nothing, even though they caused the death of an individual. And so now if that occurs, they have to actually make a court appearance. And it doesn't mean that they did something wrong necessarily, whatever, but there has to be some sort of accounting for it. So that's stuff that we've accomplished in the past. But during the pandemic, funding sort of went away. We went from having a staff person to having no staff person. people who were, and of course, we lost Kim a couple of years ago, which was incredibly sad. We were able to get the legislature to name the Maryland Bikeways program after Kim. And it has a less than royal sum of $3.8 million a year for bike projects. The state has been very penurious in terms of wanting to devote our Maryland state tax revenues to anything that doesn't have to do with cars. So that's a fight that we continue to engage in. But let me tell you, I wrote a blog actually for WABA, and you may be able to find it on the WABA website. I don't know. I tried just now, it wasn't that successful. But this was something that I penned in April, and it summarizes the bills that Bike Maryland, which includes people from WABA, people from Dumb Peddlers, people from, Frederick, Deep Creek Lake, all over the state. And we're actually going to have a meeting of advocates on the 21st to sort of gather what we're going to push for in 2023. So if you want to hear more about that, you should reach out to me. And my Bike Maryland hat, it's chair@bikemd.org. I know you're not going to send that. I'll send it to Anna. So at the conclusion of the session, we felt like we made some major progress. And number one, there was a HB 254, it was called the Vision Zero Act of 2022. Julie Polakovich Carr, Rockville resident, state delegate. What that bill does is it mandates when there is a crash on a Maryland state highway that results in a fatality or a serious injury, that the State Highway Administration has to actually do a study, not just of was it raining, was it dark, the Montgomery County Crash Reconstruction Unit does a study of the road conditions when crashes take place, but their focus is on, is there a crime here, basically? And they're very upfront about it. We've talked to them. They're great folks, but their focus is very narrow. What this bill does is it says to the State Highway Administration, when somebody dies on our roads, who's a cyclist or pedestrian or whatever, the state actually has to look at how wide are the lanes, what are the speeds, what are the road conditions that might have led to this crash, and issue a report that is public. So this is a step forward because we're actually holding this state agency accountable in a way that will hopefully point to changes in the road that will make it safer for everybody who's using it. That's number one. Number two, there was another bill that we supported, the Safe Walk to School Act by my delegate, Jared Solomon. And that bill basically mandates that when new schools are constructed or more than 100 students are added to a school through redistricting or whatever, which doesn't happen very often, that the county has to, and this is true statewide, has to submit to the state a new pedestrian safety plan that would examine what area is walkable, how are kids getting there, and identify safe walking and biking routes to the schools. So that was a step forward. There's the Maryland Regional Rail Transformation Act, which also my delegate sponsored, that basically directed $14 million in new spending towards MARC. So the MARC trains need some investment. We all would like to be able to get from Union Station to Rockville in the middle of the day. Well, that doesn't happen now. It's a rush hour service, but this is sort of the first investment in providing that kind of sort of daily, bi-directional service. And then there was a bill, the Equity in Transportation Sector Act that Delegate Sheila Ruth sponsored. I don't know if people who are really in the weeds on this stuff in Maryland, there's something called the Consolidated Transportation Plan that the Department of Transportation presents every year, and they do road shows in all the counties in the state, whatever. That Consolidated Transportation Plan has never taken into account transportation equity, which when you say that sentence, it sounds kind of crazy. But now they have to. And basically what that means is when they put the plan together, MDOT has to conduct a transit equity analysis, a cost benefit analysis, consult with people in diverse communities, which of course, as a state agency, they have not been the best at communications and consultation. And that they would announce any service change that constitutes a major change under federal guidelines, and a reduction or cancellation of a project like killing the red line in Baltimore. They would have to put that as part of the Consolidated Transportation Plan. And so this will sort of help affected, communities sort of have more input and do that. And then there also, this was something that actually MDOT supported, a commuter benefits expansion for people who bike. So it expands the tax credits that the state is able to grant to employers who cover costs of bike parking and showers and all those kind of great things that when I used to be a worker, I would appreciate for my federal workplace. And it will help bike commuters help cover their costs for bike maintenance and gear and, and memberships and clubs, that kind of thing. So that's that. And then there were some other bills that we supported, our brethren in Baltimore, the Bike More people, which is sort of the WABA equivalent in Baltimore. And so that had to do with complete streets, safe routes to schools, and buses in Baltimore City. There were two bills, and one in particular that was quite significant, that got almost all the way through the legislature, but it ran out of time. The more significant one, the Safe Access for All, or Safe Roads Act of 2022, which Delegate Charkoudian from Tacoma Park led the charge on that. And that basically mandated hundreds of millions of dollars, a minimum, for state highway administration to remedy problem areas, intersections, stretches of road. If you were to look at the Montgomery County Families for Safe Streets website, you see there's 5 different things, and there's more than that. That state highway administration has promised us, oh, we're gonna do this. But it takes 5, 6, 10 years for them to do it. And there are reasons why that is. They don't have enough staff to oversee projects. Even if you just have contractors, executing on road projects or whatever, they still need a state employee to supervise it. The District 3 that covers Montgomery and Prince George's County, a very small office. They don't have enough people to do all the things. And so these things take a long, long time to get through the pipeline. So, and they would have, this huge backlog of safety fixes would have been addressed in that. It got through the House. It died in a Senate committee. Now, the good news is that with a new governor coming in, I think that the Department of Transportation is sort of reading the tea leaves here. And in their consolidated transportation plan that they presented this last fall, it seems like that money now suddenly has appeared. So there will be some legislative action to make sure that money is spent in a certain way or whatever, but it seems that the state is now suddenly deciding that they need to commit to these kinds of things. I mean, I'll just point out one thing. New Hampshire and the Beltway. There are 6 people that have died in the last 5 years. Crossing the road, going from transit. There was a cyclist that died on Georgia Avenue on October 13th. And he was basically got off the bus, got his bike, he was walking across the road. Somebody was driving too fast, it was actually hit and run. But, and that's right by multiple other deaths in that corridor between Glenmont and Aspen Hill, if you know that. It's a very, big, big lanes, big speeds, nothing to really slow the cars down. And so there are all these areas all around the state, but I'm focused on Montgomery County, and the situation's even worse in Prince George's, that the state says they want to address, but they've been very slow to do it because of lack of funds and lack of people. So that's something that we'll continue to follow up. And then the other bill that we were pushing that was not successful was a bill introduced by Mary Lehman, who's in Anne Arundel in Prince George's County. That would have allowed local jurisdictions to study and then set lower speeds on some state roads. Right now, that whole process is basically it's State Highway Administration and the counties have some influence, but it's very, very difficult to get them to do that. And, say for instance, the city of Rockville or Garrett Park or whatever those, they have almost no ability to influence that whole thing. So that's something that we hope will be taken up by the legislature. And then we did have a meeting a couple months ago. And a couple of the things that we sort of preliminarily thought, well, maybe this is something that will set as a priority. Idaho Stop or Delaware Yield, as we say in Maryland, because Delaware is a little closer than Idaho. But all of us know what Idaho Stop is, and lower speeds on local roads, like I just talked about, allowing bikes to be on sidewalks where either counties or municipalities allow it to make that an easier process. Contributory negligence, which, DC got a carve out for bicyclists essentially. And the Maryland people that we're talking to are saying, no, that's not gonna happen. I mean, the problem with contributory negligence is the insurance system that we have and the fact that the insurance companies have a lot of money to lobby and whatever. And so.
They like simple.
Huh?
They like simple.
Well,
What it boils down.
as somebody explained it to me years ago, insurance companies are like big banks. They love deposits. They don't like withdrawals. So, this is kind of the bottom line. And then talk about the nice bridge. A few years ago, we were able to get a complete streets policy applied to SHA and a few other agencies. MDTA, which has sway over all the bridges in Maryland, specifically got opted out because they did not want to have to deal with these kinds of issues. And so, that's that. I also want to say in terms of bridges, we do want to remember this big victory that we got in terms of the Long Bridge. And that is going to make biking from DC to Virginia so much better. And in fact, in the last week or two, the plan has changed to widen the pedestrian bike facility. So that I in part credit that to the trails people on the advocacy team at WABA. And so if you want to say thank you to somebody about that, that's who you would say thank you to. The other focus that we're going to have in the next session is to increase the bike waste funding. I mean, it's less than $4 million now. I think it should be hundreds of millions of dollars. But I'd be happy to get up to 40 sort of to start with. Yes.
Can I just throw out Whitesbury where you guys might be on that?
we haven't really focused on that, and part of the problem, as I understand it, and, correct me if folks know more about this, but it's this dispute between the business that has the landing right on the Maryland side, and I don't know what to do about that. I mean, if folks have ideas about that, I'm open to it. It really is distressing to me that here was something that was really low tech, was really easy to use, was cheap, and then suddenly it went away.
Cyclists are doing a time trial across 15 years.
Yeah.
That's, so, the more you know about that, the more Maryland gets involved in white spirit.
The other thing that Bike Maryland has been pushing, not so much in a legislative sense, but in doing work with SHA itself, is to strengthen the process by which any big project is going to be federal money. So TAP, what used to be TAP, I forget what the acronym is now. Federal funds that filter through the states. And the inefficiency of the state to spend this money is just legendary. I mean, there's the bridge that now actually has started construction over the Patuxent River. So, yay, we'll be able to bike there really easily. But that took many, after the money was done and dusted, it was all there. And a friend of mine was in one of the preliminary meetings about it, and they didn't even talk about timeframes. I mean, it's like the way that they're thinking about this stuff is just crazy. There's a sidewalk project. You'd think that would be pretty simple kind of thing in College Park, and the city was behind it and all this kind of stuff. It took 3 or 4 years just to get that started after the money was allocated. So we want the state to be more efficient about the way that it utilizes these federal funds, since that's the majority of the funds. And so we're hoping to engage with a new gubernatorial administration that hopefully is interested in these things. Aruna Miller, who's the lieutenant governor candidate, did used to work for MCDOT, has a lot of transportation experience. We're hoping that will, and I met Wes Moore. He gave a talk at the District 18 Breakfast Club. And I said to him, cyclists are behind you. And he was like, really, very enthusiastic about that. The other thing that we're going to work on is who's the new Secretary of Transportation going to be. We will weigh in on that. And then also we would like to see all these district offices within SHA. They're very, very headquarter, top heavy kind of organization, but they have these people in the districts. There should be a bike ped planner in each one of those districts in the state. There's no, the problem is for somebody who is interested in something that isn't a car, their path for career enhancement and advancement within SHA is a dead end right now. And so we want to sort of provide opportunities for that to happen as well. There's a couple other little things that we may work on. Again, as I said, if you want to join this meeting, be an advocate. We would love for Potomac peddlers to, be willing to communicate to its members things that Bike Maryland wants to see happen. I think the same is true for WABA. We see you as an engaged group. And certainly when I was on the Coachman Cap Crescent Trail, we had people on the board who are still active with y'all. And so I encourage you to reach out. As one of my favorite professors said, the only stupid question is the one you just heard answered. So those stupid questions, you catch me at peter@waba.org or chair@bikemaryland.org. So any questions, comments? The other thing I did want to say, I sort of left this out of the narrative, didn't need to. we did go through this period of time where we lost our paid staff. People were kind of burnt out on the board. And what happened in the meantime was the tax filings that we needed to make for being a 501c3 lapsed. The IRS told us that recently. They noticed after a few years. We are working on that. We are working on getting reinstated as 501c3. We may decide to just be a 501c4 so that we can, just focus on the lobbying. We used to do something called Larry's Ride, which was a fundraising ride. We haven't done that for a few years. So we need people to be invested in the efforts that we're doing for advocacy and giving us money, become members, et cetera, et cetera. So you should do that. And then one more thing I want to say before I finish. Dan Langenkamp's wife, Sarah.
Yes.
So we already have almost 1,000 people registered for this ride. So I hope that Potomac Peddlers can send out the registration link.
We've already.
So
amplified
you've
it.
done that. Okay, great. Yeah, but you can find the link yourself if you Google Dan Langenkamp and Trek Bikes.
Yeah.
Or you can go to WABA's website, or you can go to the Bike Maryland website where it's on our homepage. And I have met Dan. I have, engaged with him a lot. He's a very remarkable person. When he said on Labor Day, when we had the memorial for Sarah at the crash site, he said, well, I want to organize this ride on November 19th. And I think we'll get 1,000 people there. I thought he was crazy because November 19th, I mean, it's too cold, it's too this, it's too that, it's not enough time, whatever. And his networks and the people that he has mobilized, and part of the reason that Trek is all in on this is because cousins of Sarah work there. She grew up not far from Madison, where Trek is based. And they've been incredible. And they have bought several bike shops like Spokes and a couple others, and their staff is gonna be out there, and we really applaud their efforts.
I hear he's also going to ask the US Department of Transportation to add like $200 million to one of their transportation bills.
So there's a bill that passed that was a great bill in terms of infrastructure for vulnerable road users. Essentially, it doesn't use that term, but it's in urban areas. And Congress passed this bill in 2021, but gave it $0. So the idea is to put some hundreds of millions of dollars in that. And the other federal ask, because we're riding to the Capitol to make this, present these requests, is to increase the safety of trucks for those of us biking and walking around. So side guards, which are mandatory in Europe, training, which is mandatory in Europe, blind spot sensors, which a lot of us now are starting to get on our cars. The trucks should have this too. And so that also is the ask.
Well, many of us will be there on November 19th.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Well,
All right, well,
thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, I have 2 minutes to wrap the meeting. So there's your 2-minute warning, which means I get 7 minutes. All right, so as promised, this is my favorite part of the meeting and I'm very excited. I get to hand out awards. So we have 4 awards to hand out this year for volunteers and efforts that people have put forward that have made the club a better place in 2022 and hopefully into the future, into 2023 and beyond. So without further ado, the Peter LeGrand Good Shepherd Award, which is the Outstanding Ride Leader of the Year Award. So this award is going to a person who is near and dear to my heart, who I've known since I joined the club many years ago. It's a ride leader who has previously been involved with administrative work and executive work with the club. But he's really focused his effort in the last few years on ride leadership and ride mentorship. And that's really why he was nominated and is winning this award this year. This person is currently a ride leader, mostly in DC,
But his efforts have expanded into Maryland and Virginia on several occasions. And one of the amazing things about this person that I really admire is his ability to coordinate the people in DC and make the rest of our riding jurisdiction more accessible to the people in DC. This person went out of his way to lead various groups on our brewery series over the summer. Even put together a carpool list of people in DC to get up to the Twister Century, which I thought was outstanding. I in particular really valued him because he invited me out to lunch with a bunch of the DC cohort after the Milk House ride and introduced me to a lot of the young and up and comers. And several of those people after that conversation really wanted to launch into the club and get their hands dirty and really become a better part of what the club is going to be in the future. And it really has to do with this person's mentorship and his leadership. So the Peter Luke Grand Good Shepherd Award is going to Matthew Birnbaum. I will give that to him over the next year. So the next award I will be bestowing is the Rookie Ride Leader of the Year. Now, this person, I will say, was also up for the Good Shepherd Award. We wanted to spread the wealth, but this person definitely merited the Good Shepherd Award as well. This is a person who once upon a time belonged to Potomac Peddlers, moved away from the area, and then came back and wanted to get a jump on things. I met this person at the Maryland picnic ride when I was on crutches and was barely mobile. And everybody came back from the ride that he led and had a fantastic time. And I had a wonderful time talking with him. I joined him later on one of the other brewery series rides, and I heard nothing but good things from several of the people who nominated him from his various rides out of Montgomery County, and especially Poolsville. So the Rookie Ride Leader of the Year goes to Chris Dix, who happens to be on the call right now. Yay! So thank you so much, Chris. He just disappeared.
Thank you. Thank you.
So excited he's gone.
I'm here. Thank you very much.
Yay, there he is. You're so welcome, Chris. Congratulations. All right, next up is the Best Original Ride of the Year. There were a couple candidates for this. The ride that we chose came from an esteemed longtime ride leader who nominated this ride. So this is a ride out of Virginia. And basically what's happened in Virginia is there's a cohort that gets together pretty much every weekend or every other weekend to ride the same loop. Well, someone decided, let's throw another loop into the mix. Let's make it a little more interesting. Let's throw a little gravel in. Let's throw a little trail riding in. Let's make this accessible to everybody. And I really love that idea. And that's why I really fought for this person and this ride. So the Best Original Ride of the Year goes to the Accotink Burke Loop, which was created by Avarma or Kim Blackwell. So thank you so much for your efforts to get this ride in the calendar. This was put forward by Jeff Mankey, who was a previous Good Shepherd Ride Leader Award, and I'm more than happy to honor that. So the last award we have this evening is one that the XCOM puts together without any other input from the club. And this award started last year in memory of Debbie Curitan, who was a message committee member. And this award goes to people who work behind the scenes really hard, don't ask for any credit, pretty much just want to be a shadow hand in the game of our club and just make sure that we continue to run nice and smoothly and effectively. I put this person forward this year several months ago. In fact, I think I texted Deb and I said, this person deserves the award. Basically, and I don't think he's on the call right now, but he'll know who he is. And a lot of you know who he is as soon as I start the story. I was supposed to meet this person at our storage unit in August. It was 110 degrees out. It was gross as anything. I was waiting in my vehicle to load up from storage, and I had about 10 minutes to kill before we were supposed to meet. So I said, okay, I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna just open the door, dust the cobwebs off and everything. And Butch was already in there working hard, throwing things into the hallway, organizing, ready to throw into the back of the truck, ready to send me back on my way to Maryland. So I didn't have to spend 1.5 million years in the storage unit when he knew my time was valuable. Multiply that by 10,000, and that is what Butch does for our club, day in, day out, for every event we do. Everything from picnic rides, everything to organizing Shenandoah and making reservations on the back end of things, everything from putting sandwiches together at the Twister, texting me, emailing me at like 4 in the morning or 5 in the afternoon on a Sunday saying, this kind of ride would be great. What do you think? Butch also in the past has put together our hiking calendar for our off season. And he's done so without any sort of squawk, any sort of tooting his own horn. And it's time that he gets his own award and not attached to any other big award. So Butch, this is absolutely for you. All right, so that wraps up the main part of our meeting. So what's going to happen with the election? We have winners for the members at large. Basically, they are the 3 nominees that got put up. They have the most votes. We have someone identified for treasurer, and we have a situation identified for running the century next year. And what will happen is we will announce that early on in the week. There will be a runoff so we can approve our new treasurer who is unable to make it on the call or in person tonight. And you'll be hearing more from that, but XCOM 2023 will be shored up in the next couple of days. So hold on to your seats for that. So I want to thank everybody at home who joined us. I want to thank everybody in person. I want to thank REI again for hosting us, and be safe and ride well.